Hello, welcome to the Met Office 10-day trend, the first one of autumn. Meteorologically, autumn begins on the 1st of September. We've changed season, changed month, but we're not changing weather just yet. Certainly for the rest of this week, high pressure continues to bring a lot of dry and predominantly cloudy weather. However, it does look as if changes are on the way as we go into next week. Quite a bit of uncertainty at this stage about exactly when we see the switch, but a very good chance that things will turn wetter, but also quite a strong signal that things will turn a bit warmer next week also. More on that in a moment. First of all, let's get through the next few days. High pressure has been with us for a number of days and will stick with us through the rest of this week. It's being allowed to sit there because of the position of the jet stream, which is arcing well to the north, allowing this dome where the high pressure is just sitting around. However, if we fast forward to the early part of next week, we have some subtle changes. There is still an arm of the jet stream going way to the north, but this little dip in the jet stream potentially allowing low pressure to move in, the high pressure slipping away to the east. But there is a bit of uncertainty just on the exact shape of the jet stream and therefore the position of that low, as we will see in just a moment. But for the next few days, yes, the high pressure will control our weather, keeping things largely dry, keeping the weather fronts at bay. It will always stay fairly cloudy, and particularly so across eastern parts of the UK, because that's where the high pressure is dictating the winds are drifting in from. Let's run through that sequence again, but the winds around high pressure now shown, and of course they're moving around clockwise and just drawing in the moisture almost constantly from the North Sea. So it's across these eastern areas where that feed of the breeze will keep things predominantly cloudy. But that high pressure, although there'll be a few light showers here and there, will keep things dry for the vast majority. And we should see a bit more in the way of sunshine developing, especially in western parts, for the next few days into the weekend. What happens beyond that, as I said at the start, quite a bit of uncertainty, and the reason for that is over on the other side of the Atlantic and what's happening at the moment. This is what was Hurricane Ida. Now, it's been weakening over the past 24 to 48 hours, and over the next day or so it will no longer be a tropical system. It will just become an ordinary area of low pressure. It will still bring quite a lot of rain across the eastern side of the USA and eastern Canada, and it will also be drawing up a lot of warmth. It's an energetic system from the tropics, so it's bringing with it a lot of warm air. Now, usually we talk about the jet stream dictating pressure patterns at the surface, but when you've got a highly energetic system like this, well, that can itself influence the jet stream. And so the position and track of this low and all that warm air and all that energy will be crucial to what happens to our weather. Look at how it's pushing the jet stream up to the north, and then it's that diving down of the jet stream that creates that little kink in it that we saw earlier that dictates the position of this low. Now, this isn't the same low as Ida, but you can see how the remnants of Ida are influencing the jet stream that then influence the position of that low. And subtle changes in that highly energetic system, well, will lead to subtle positional changes of this low. Now, this is the Met Office computer model, and this is the scenario for Sunday night and into Monday. That low sitting out to the west, and the weather fronts finally bringing some rain into western parts of the UK. But as I said, there is quite a lot of uncertainty, and that is shown by the comparison between the Met Office UK model and the European model. Now, both are kind of broadly similar. They both have that low out to the west. But in the European model, the ECMWF model, the rain hasn't reached, just that subtle shift from the area of low pressure caused by the uncertainty, which is in part due to the remnants of Ida, means the difference between a dry, fine day across the UK for the vast majority on Sunday, or that wet weather coming in from the west on the UK model, those patches there. Notice how both are also drawing up the orange colours, suggesting it will be warmer. But the difference is quite stark between, as I say, a largely dry day from the European model on Sunday, or that rain coming in from the west. Now, this is what we call deterministic computer models, when we just run the model once. But obviously, when we're looking at medium longer range, if you're familiar with the 10-day trend, you'll know that often we'll run the computer model lots and lots of times and come up with different scenarios. And this is also showing the uncertainty from the European model about the position of that low. We call it a Dalmatian plot for obvious reasons. You can just about make out the UK up there. And each of these different purple and brown blobs is a different position of that low when we run that computer model several times. Now, normally they'd be much closer together. You'd have much more certainty about the position of the low. But this is a real scattergun of a Dalmatian plot, showing us that there is a lot of uncertainty. One thing it also does show us is the colours of those dots representing the central pressure there along the bottom. Lots of purples and blues, suggesting that the low itself isn't going to be particularly intense, not particularly deep. So we're not expecting the winds to be especially strong from this low pressure system. But there is a lot of uncertainty about the position and therefore the timing of the rain. And that uncertainty continues into next week. This is the longer range probabilistic pattern. The probabilities of high or low pressure dates going along the bottom. Again, this is the ECMWF, the European model scenario. Reds being high pressure, rock solid, high pressure in control until the weekend. And then we start to see signs of the blues coming in, low pressure starting to take control. And that's very likely for Monday and Tuesday. But beyond that, notice it's kind of back to 50-50. So again, emphasizing quite a bit of uncertainty as we go into next week. But notice the colors of the blue. These blue blocks are all the same shade. And the different shades of blue are the different types of low pressure. And as we go beyond the end of next week, notice there are different shades of blue. But for the time we're really looking at, early next week, it's just that one pale shade of blue, which is telling us that the low pressure is likely to be down to the south of the UK. And in that scenario, well, that's always likely to push up some warm air from the south. And that's what the computers are suggesting when we talked earlier about the warmth coming next week. And these two plots show that. These are looking at Hull and Manchester, the maximum temperatures, the red blobs there along the top. This one's for Hull, and you can see compared to the average red line, the next few days likely to be cooler than average still because of that northeasterly feed from the North Sea. But a strong signal there that we're going to get a jump in the temperatures as we go into next week. And the same for Manchester as well, a jump in the temperatures next week. Now, the blobs do get bigger, the box and whiskers plot, to give them their official title. They do get bigger, which means there is more uncertainty. But if you look closely, even with the uncertainty, even at the bottom end of that range, they're still around about the average, which means even in the coolest scenario, they're still going to be around about average, which means there's a strong suggestion that it will be warmer next week. So we are looking at a warmer spell across the UK next week, but details of whether that's warm and sunny or warm and cloudy or warm and wet, well, we'll have to firm up on those as we get closer to the time. But certainly with low pressure moving in, a much higher chance of rain compared to what we've seen over the past week or so. So for those day-to-day details, and as we iron out the uncertainty over the next couple of days, make sure you keep across the Met Office on social media.